Hi. Teachers inquire as to the scope of programs available for their year groups from Foundation to Year 7 at the Sustainability Learning Centre, and they're particularly looking at the alignment to the Australian curriculum and the subject areas of science and the cross-curriculum priority of sustainability. Programs about biodiversity and systems are regularly requested because they occur significantly in the Year 1, Year 4, Year 5 and Year 6 curriculums. Teachers regularly request further information about the program offered to incorporate the visit effectively into their teaching and learning planning and the planning that they do for their unit of work. I'm pleased to have these conversations with teachers to assist with their planning and ensure I can tailor the program of learning opportunities appropriately. Hence the development of the Biodiversity Mini Beast Edu creation video to invite teachers and students to step outside and into the bush, to explore and experience a sense of wonder and an inquiry and gain an appreciation of different viewpoints and or worldviews, inviting students into the world of scientists, investigators and entomologists such as David Attenborough. Students, even as young as 5 and 6, 3 years of age, 4 years of age, are really intrinsically exploring and investigating and analysing and explaining and evaluating all the time. I mean, that's how children learn, basically through play, and then refine those techniques as they develop through their life, and it's something that people are doing all the time throughout their life. But when we're really trying to encourage students and teachers are grappling with addressing curriculum needs, I think a marvellous environment is outdoors. But in the outdoors, students, particularly when they're looking around at biodiversity, can utilise tools like hand lenses, which are quite simple but very effective, as well as digital tools such as digital microscopes and iPads and or computers for taking photos. Digital microscopes are fantastic because children can come up close and then have the image of what they're seeing on the iPad, so that then others can share, and then they can take a picture of that and keep that and use that for their further investigation or their research work. Other things, useful things, are classification tools, which could be from an app that can be downloaded from on the iPad, or it could be the old-fashioned handheld classification chart, which is equally as valuable, and people can share around it. Encouraging children to ask questions, so really looking at that inquiry model about what is it, where is it, how is it, what could it be, does it eat, what does it need, what are its needs, and encouraging the children to observe and record both the information about the habitat but also information about the insect or creature and its body parts, and if they can label them anatomically, either using a pencil and paper or taking a photo using a digital camera and then labelling that, or using Create or another app to draw and label or import a photo. That's displaying and utilising a higher level potentially of application than just doing a straight drawing, but there's still a lot of skill in doing a sketch and assigning anatomically correct shapes to an insect and then being able to label them. We're also, to expand that, giving the children the opportunity to consider being explorer and making a discovery, and using that discovery to then contemplate, well, what is required when a new creature is discovered. What information do scientists and other people require about habitat, body size, body dimensions, body types, should there be drawings, pictures, photos, and how can you give that information easily to other scientists? So encouraging children to create, discuss with a partner, so really communicate and collaborate and work together to create a new insect, maybe modelling with clay, modelling in the sand, using rocks, bark, twigs, or they might like to draw it in the sand, draw it in the bush, or draw it on an iPad if they have an iPad handy or available to them. or they could use that photo that they've taken of their other insect and expand and develop that in new ways. After that, then I think it would be really great to put perhaps the digital tools away and for the children to use the natural environment to create a diorama or habitat that reflects their new creature and create some signs, which could be, on using word processing and printed out, or handwritten detailing the information about their new creature. They might like to create a pamphlet or maybe a poster so that they could display and provide that information to their peers through a discussion and a presentation. So I see that as being an example of the SAMR model, in that there is some substitution occurring, there's definitely some augmentation occurring, modification, and in that final culminating performance, a redefinition of and a redefining of their and reapplication of their thinking and their knowledge, in that they develop their new insect and they're able to provide that information and give it to their peers in a way that's easily understood and communicated to other children or other students or other adults. So there's also the 21st century skills being addressed here, because the students are being encouraged to communicate and work together. So that's collaboration. They're asked to think critically and consider, well, what are the body parts? What does this insect require to be categorised as an insect? What sorts of habitats? That size, and also to create, so to work together to decide on which tools, which medium that they want to use to create those things. So I think that's a really good example, and that's working with really young children. But to expand that for older children, we go to another slide. My work is also with teachers, so it would be about explicitly teaching around the value of engagement in the bush and utilising tools like EduCreation app or other IT tools to assist with the use of the iPad indoors and outdoors, and to utilise for the teacher to have some time to explore and play with that tool before they take and encourage the students to use it. For the Year 6 science curriculum, in the scientific understanding category for the Australian curriculum, biological sciences, students are expected to understand about the growth and survival of living things and how they're affected by physical conditions of their environment. And through science and human endeavour, they're encouraged to gather data, use this evidence to explain and solve problems and inform both themselves and also maybe the community around them about decisions that they've come to through the data or the evidence that they've seen. It's also encouraging to look at the digital technologies curriculum, which is to be addressed by all teachers next year, so it's a mandated, as are all the curriculum areas in the Australian curriculum. They're mandated for all teachers working within the Department of Education in Tasmania. The digital technologies curriculum encourages or states that students in Year 6 should acquire, store and validate different types of data and use a range of software to interpret and visualise data to create and inform. So I really see an opportunity through the study of habitat and biodiversity that students have a really abundant opportunity to develop tools to assess, evaluate, observe and gather data, use evidence and explain and solve problems. One of the issues that we have at the Sustainability Learning Centre is that we've got a beautiful bush habitat, but we've got a number of groups and individuals who behave inappropriately in those spaces and so are degrading those spaces. So what it would really be encouraging is for the Year 6s to go into the habitat and to take and collect evidence about and observe that habitat, and perhaps come to some considerations about what are the issues around the habitat and what it needs to be maintained. So, and then ask them, well, how could they gather this data and gather this data in an ongoing way, and looking at then perhaps introducing the students to some experts, for instance, an expert from Parks and Wildlife, who could show how they use quadrats and create maps and collect data sets of information around all the plants, vegetation contained within an area, and also how they use cameras to gather data around what occurs in the night, which often is the time when these issues occur in our bushland. So this, through ideally the introduction of these experts, the teachers and the students would be introduced to night vision cameras and the capacity that they have for recording visual evidence over a period of 24 hours or 48 hours, and can be doing that on a repeated basis, and the students can then analyse the data. The other thing that could be students might like to consider and look at would be a use of a drone, and how a drone can be used to fly over an area to take an aerial photograph, and that can be used on repeated occasions across different seasons or across weekend versus week, to see what impacts there are on those environments. Students could be encouraged to obviously ask questions of these experts as to how and why and what, and the benefits and also the drawbacks of using these types of tools to assess the environmental benefits and environmental impacts in that space. We would then perhaps encourage the students to engage in some data collection through putting up a night camera and then recording information through that night camera, and then analysing that data, and then determining maybe some courses of action once they've seen the evidence, and make some decisions about what that evidence perhaps means, and then what's the course of action that they can take through that evidence. The same with the drone. There could be opportunities to fly at night time too, potentially, or maybe better not, but to fly and to see what's happening in that space. Another important aspect, I think, of the SAMR model or any other model is how the assessment process that's going to be engaged in to determine, the criteria and the performance, if you like, or evidence of student understanding and student development of particular criteria that's being assessed. Rubrics are a really great way to determine and gauge where students' performance is, and also provides a great way to discuss with students what the expectations are for the learning task and how they can meet those expectations. It's also really valuable for the students to develop their own evaluation or self-evaluation rubric, where they can look at what they want to achieve from working in a team and looking at a problem, using some technology, and what they hope to achieve from that, and then give them opportunities to reflect and assess themselves. And they might like to assess a peer and do a peer review of how they see their peer working, but then collaboratively and then in consultation with the teacher go through the rubric and see whether they've achieved the expectation or working towards proficient, or whether they're an expert in the areas that are being considered for the rubric.